when we started, we said we were going to get to something like 21 episodes, and that was the first goal. So we're nearly halfway there. But I'm joined by Laura Scott-Davies from CloudCall, sorry. And this week we're going to be talking about transitioning between roles. And I guess the first step in chatting about transitioning between roles is to get a bit of a background about yourself. So I'll hand over to you for a full rundown.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, excited to be on the podcast today to start off with. But I guess a little bit about myself. I always find that question so weird because it's like, where do you start? What do you do? But my name's Laura. I'm 28, and I currently work for a company called CloudCall as a partner manager. Yeah, is that a good enough start?
Yeah, I guess it's your current role is at CloudCall, but you want to just give us a top level overview of would we call it your professional career to date? Like, last sort of, if you're 28, it's probably 7-ish years out of uni. What has that looked like?
Yeah, so actually kind of only 4 years out of uni. So I had a gap year, did the classic, went on a ski season and then went traveling, and then went to Bristol Uni, did French, which was a 4-year course where I was lucky enough to spend a year in France, half of it studying, half of it in Paris for an internship. So that was actually bizarrely kind of the world's kind of come full circle. My first experience within the recruitment industry. So, I worked for an executive search company. So that was kind of like, without really knowing that I would end up back in this space at some point, that was the first thing I did. So that was my internship in Paris, and was kind of my first look at working in the real world. I'm doing it in French, which was, again, kind of a lot of fun, but very challenging in itself. And then I finished uni. So because I'd had a gap year and because it was a 4-year course, I finished uni, had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. Worked like kind of smaller jobs for a bit whilst I was figuring it out, and then came across a company that did like recruitment into sales roles. And I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go into sales. So just thought, we'll just see where this goes. And when I started looking, like my end goal was always, I wanted to go into marketing. So I then got a job as a kind of a BDM, but it was like a BDR role, to be honest, to start off with. And then went into customer success, then into marketing, and now I'm here as a partner manager.
So what have your, marketing, BDM, so what have your sort of titles been? Just like rough titles over the course of those 4 years?
Yeah, so I was a business development manager, a customer success manager, a marketing manager, but it was more like marketing, content creation, design focused, and then now a partner manager.
Okay, so in terms of your current role then, partner manager, I know partnerships, partner manager, that can mean quite a few different things. So sort of give us a bit of an overview of your current role.
Yeah, so to be honest, I think partner managers do a bit of everything. And that's why like the previous roles I've done have been so great in setting me up for this. And it takes like the best parts of those roles, which is what I love, and kind of puts them into the like partner manager role. So you work so closely with sales. You also work with the marketing teams. You work with basically every single part of the business, just to make sure that everything is going well for your partner and that it's going as smoothly as it can be. You're getting the most out of them. So kind of day to day, it massively varies. But my boss always says, you're like a mini CEO for that partner. And it's kind of very true. Not kind of, it is very true. Because you do have like connections with every other part of the business. So for that partner, like you're managing their day to day and managing their success and making sure that every single part is working the way that it needs to be to get what you need to get done.
So in terms of when we're talking partners, it's, company A partners with company B for a mutual gain, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like so for us, our partners are integrated like CRM solutions, basically. So the CRMs are our partners who integrate with us. And then we also have affiliate partners who sit within those CRM ecosystems most of the time. And yeah, the way we work with those partnerships, it varies. So with our CRMs, it's obviously an integration, whereas with like our affiliate partners, it's more kind of like what you guys are basically. You're one of our affiliate partners, so it's like more of a like marketing side of things, like working on kind of business together, seeing how we can like help each other with like deals if you've got like open opportunities and things like that. So yeah, that's how it works.
Now, within your role, does it involve you actually going out and finding those partnerships as well, or is that handled by sort of sales?
Yeah, so currently no to the new CRM ones, but all of the affiliate partners. So we had like a kind of a big affiliate partner drive this year, and all of those have been brought on by the partnership team, which has been quite fun.
There's definitely there's definitely part of it that's sort of sales in that you have to go out, reach out, connect with people, pitch the business, build out this partnership and essentially close the deal, close the partnership.
Yeah, exactly. Like I did my first cold call in like 4 years this year. And that was like a terrifying experience to go back to, because I never thought I'd have to do a cold call again once I like moved away from like business development. But yeah, it was, I mean, a good experience. And also I'd had that experience before. So the worst that someone's going to say to you is no. That's kind of how I take it. Yeah,
no, there's a guy in the office who always says the person who gets the most yeses also gets the most nos. So roll with the punches sort of thing. Okay, then. So we've sort of touched on the roles that you've had over the past 4 years, the role that you're currently sitting in. So when you transitioned between those roles, what was the main reason for moving between those particular roles, or that just transitioning between roles in general?
Yeah, to be honest, I think a part of it, I'll say luck, but I can hear people in my ears saying you create your own luck. But I got very lucky in a sense that the company that I joined straight like out of uni was a very small startup travel app. And because of that, it meant that everybody in the company had great opportunities just naturally, because we're a team. I think when I joined, we were in the office, there were only 6 of us. So there was that opportunity. And I think because I'd made it quite clear, even in my interview, which I think was maybe not the best idea, but I still got the job. I did say that I didn't want to stay in sales and I did want to move into marketing. So from kind of straight off, they knew that I was looking to go into other areas. The opportunity, I then actually started to really enjoy some of the things that I was doing with our customers at the time. And then the opportunity came up. So we had like a partner manager, but we didn't have like a customer success function. So I was able to create the customer success function, which was really cool, like create all the processes and everything for it. So I think I was like 24 at the time. I was like, this is so cool. Like I've been given so much responsibility, so many opportunities. And I could just kind of run with it however I wanted to. Obviously, within reason, there were some things that I was still asking for help and advice because I'd never done it before. But from a generally, I was able to like create whatever I wanted to, which was so fun. And I am quite a creative person, so I love that. And then I did that for, I think, 2 years. So the most of the time that I was at my old company, that's basically what I did. And that included throughout the whole of the pandemic as well. And that was actually a really interesting time for us as a company, a very difficult time, as it was for many companies, but because we were in travel. But we found that actually quite a few of our customers wanted to use that time to get better at using the app. They wanted to kind of find different ways they could do stuff. And it meant that we had an opportunity then to be even more creative, to put even more content out into the world. I created these little kind of like workshops and had so much fun with like the marketing side of being like in customer success, and was creating videos, didn't even know I could create a video, like creating all this kind of graphic stuff. And we had someone in marketing at the time who was like incredibly talented and great at graphic design, just taught me absolutely everything she knew. So then post-pandemic, 2021, when the opportunity came up, after she'd left actually, for me to go into marketing, I just said to my then boss, like, can I just move over? I'd really like to be marketing for the company and just see what it's like. And they always said yes. So I don't know what that means. I was either doing something right or they wanted to like put me into somewhere else. I don't know, but it's quite nice. They still use like the marketing stuff that I created and things like that. And it also made me realize that I loved the content creation, but as soon as it became my full role, I was suddenly like, oh, I'm not sure I do love this as much. So yeah, that's how I moved around. And then I actually decided I wanted to go to a new company, and found CloudCall through one of my colleagues at my old company, who works for one of our CRM partners. And yeah, then I was like, partner manager sounds perfect, because it's like marketing, sales, and you obviously have like the customer success side of things is more like partner success. So it's a perfect combination of all three.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you've basically taken the best or your favorite bits from each of the roles, and you've managed to combine them in your current role. So, in terms of those the favorite bits that you like then, so of sales, marketing, and CS, let's go into each of them just briefly. So, what was your favorite thing about sales that I guess you've managed to maintain in your current role?
Yeah, I think there's actually a couple of things that I liked. I loved and hated in equal measure, like talking to somebody on the phone and not knowing what their reaction was going to be, and then trying to turn a conversation around. So people can be quite quick. I mean, if you've ever had a cold calling job, people can be very quick to shut you down. But it's about like finding the opportunity in that and seeing how you can like turn that conversation around. I really enjoyed that. Like I enjoyed the challenge of doing things like that. And then I think as well with sales, just like the feeling you get when you make a sale is just so great. Like you can't like make that up or try and, I don't know, it's just so different. So I think for me, that was like my absolute favorite part. But I think and maybe on the flip side, I know you didn't ask this, but like what I really didn't like was I found it was one of those, again with like the cold calling, it was one of those things that you have your incredible highs, but there were so many lows during that time that I was just like, I'm not sure whether this is the best role for what I'm good at. And I'm a very good people person, so I enjoy talking to people, but I wasn't so much a fan of like the constantly getting rejected by people on the phone. But it was all good fun. And then with the customer,
I was going to say, sorry, I sit in the middle of the sales and CS teams, and you do see the constant highs and lows, just like every single day. And I completely see. I'm not sure I could. I've been in sort of trade marketing previously, and sales roles when I was much younger, but I'm not sure I could handle it on a daily basis. To be honest, but okay. And then your client success or customer success role, what were the favorite bits from that?
To be honest, I think I loved all of it. Like, I think that was the first role I did where I was like, oh, this is actually really fun, like most of the time. With the exception of obviously with that, you then have the challenge of unhappy customers. And at any company, you get unhappy customers. And we had some very unhappy customers at times. And that was a challenge in itself. But I think that was also always such a small portion of what I was doing day to day. So like my favorite bits were, I think, having like the independence to just be able to create a whole process. Like there aren't many people that will be able to say they have had that opportunity. And I think that's an opportunity you only really get in smaller companies. And that in itself was just something that I will forever be grateful for, because it taught me so much. It taught me that it isn't easy to create a process, because processes straight off the bat aren't the most wonderful things in the world. Even if you plan it just to the ends of the earth, there will always be something in it that when you put it into practice, it doesn't quite work the way you think it will. And I think that in itself was a great part of it, because I learned so much. So yeah, that's
okay. And then the third role was marketing then. So what were your sort of favorite bits in the marketing? I mean, you've already covered the sort of the creativity, but were there any specifics?
Yeah, so my favorite part was and everyone kind of like within the company, we called it the M&S voiceovers. So I basically created this kind of series of like feature videos, which was so much fun. And I would always be like, oh, can I do another video? And I think before I left, I can't remember how many videos I'd done, but there are things that are still on the website, still being used, which is awesome. But the first one that I put out, I remember everyone's like feedback being like, oh my gosh, you literally sound like it's not just any app. It's like an M&S app. And that I really enjoyed, because I just felt like it was something I was good at, something that the creativity of putting all the aspects together. So the graphics for the videos, like using the app in a way that was slightly different. So giving customers and partners like more out of the app they already had. And then also putting a voiceover, some nice music to it, and making it into a whole production. So yeah, that was quite fun.
Nice. Now there's going to be pros and cons to having, I guess, moved between such different roles, even if there are synergies or similarities between the roles. So what do you think have been the good bits and the bad bits that you've sort of found from moving between roles?
Yeah, to be honest, I was actually thinking about this, because I can't think of any cons like straight off the bat, to be honest, because I feel like every role that I've like moved into, it's been quite a nice like natural progression into that role, because either something I was doing in the role before fitted well with what the next role was, and the skills that you have, like they're so like transferable, like you're always learning something that will then help you for your next role. And also it just moves in quite a nice way. So I don't think there were any cons. I think the only con, but I don't really see it as a con, is the fact that when you move into a new role, you're kind of like, you're not starting over if you're within the same company, but you are kind of starting over. Like I remember when I had with like my when I went from being in business development to customer success, it was quite like, it wasn't like I stopped doing that on one day and I started doing it on another day. It was quite like a gradual like change. So again, like it wasn't like a hard like move either. So maybe there should be more cons, but I didn't see any. So
No, I had this I don't know if you'd call it a mantra or just a belief, but I essentially changed roles I think it was 2.5 years, and I think a lot of those were sort of lateral sideways moves, and my attitude was I'd rather spend 6 years across 3 different companies in 3 different industries doing 3 slightly different things, and then come out of it as a more rounded professional or marketer, whatever. And I think one of my old bosses used to say, like, you want to add as many strings to your bow as you possibly can, because you're going to be a much more valuable resource. So I think in moving between roles and in finding things that you enjoy and honing those skills, you're just going to become a more rounded professional. So no, I can see why there's definitely not as many cons, if any at all, to be honest. So what are if you had to like pick some of the skills, like we sort of the stuff that you liked, but what are some of the skills that you've taken from each role, or skills that you think are like cross-transferable?
I mean, I think the list is endless, to be honest. You could probably go all day, like communication, resilience, adaptability, flexibility. Like every role you do gives you skills that put you closer towards like where you're going to end up being, and where you're going to end up being as well is constantly changing. So I think probably if I split it down by role, my first role taught me resilience, and it was quite a hard like wake up call to the world of work, which was wonderful in every single way. I think customer success, create like how to be strategic, creativity, like, but also how to be adaptable and flexible. Like, as I was saying earlier, like if you create a process, it doesn't always work. So once you've put that out into the world, how do you quickly make it work for the people it's supposed to work for? And then with, I think as well, like the skill of just like diving into the unknown and knowing that it will be okay in the end. Not to sound too cheesy, but like it will. And I think that's a skill that quite often nowadays we want to like know the outcomes of things. We want to know what's going to happen. Like I feel like we're becoming more and more risk averse. But actually, like if you've gotten a job, your employer has obviously seen that you have the skills to be able to do that job. So like, even if you maybe don't believe it yourself, like embrace it and just kind of go into it like head first, and everything will work out in the end, regardless of like how you feel about it at the time. I think that's a good skill, like just believing that everything will be okay.
No, I think that's a very, very nice piece of advice as well, as much as it is a skill. So what do you think in terms of those skills then, what would you say going into your current role were your most applicable skills in terms of like, yeah, these are my top 5 skills that are going to make me great at this job?
Wow, what a question. Again, there's so many. I think the main things with this role is because it was so, although it's very similar, it was very different to roles I'd had before. I think as well as the company, it was a much bigger company. I got from a company when I left of like 20 to, I think like we're now 250 to 300 people. So we're like a bigger company, big in my eyes. And I think like, obviously you've got like your basics of like learning to work with people and like those kinds of things. But then I think as well, again, being flexible, being adaptable, like learning to work with people is like, I joked about it. Like, obviously you have to play nice, but actually learning to work with people is quite difficult when you're so used to like, I've been at a company for 3 years. I'd gotten used to every single person in that company. Someone new came in, generally they would also work quite similarly because like as a small company, like you're bringing on kind of like-minded people, I guess. So yeah, learning to work with people who maybe have like work differently, so do things a different way, which again is so fun and so exciting. But other skills that are really useful, I mean, yeah, like flexibility, adaptability, communication. Like I think I've always been okay at talking to people, but this role, I really need to be okay at talking to people. And I absolutely love it. Like I love the social side of work. And I think that's why I love this role so much, is because I go out and I go to events and you talk to people and you meet new people. Like when I met your team at Engage, it was just so nice to like meet new people, talk to new people within the space and yeah, and be sociable. So maybe being sociable is a skill. Well, obviously it's a skill, but it's a useful one. I don't really know what else. I feel like there's just so much, and everything you learn just sets you up for like your role where you are now. So difficult to pinpoint one, but that was my little ramble about skills. So.
And you mentioned events and trade shows, which seem to sort of be back in full swing now, or full effect. So do you do those events a lot?
Yeah, so I mean, compared to my previous role, way more. I think we normally had like 2 events a year. Whereas since being at CloudCall, I don't know how many events I've been to, but there have been so many. And they vary in different degrees as well, which is quite cool. Like some of them will be like evening things, sometimes they'll be like roundtables, or they'll just be like all day events. Then you've got like the bigger events, so like the Bullhorn, the Salesforce events as well, which are always really cool. But yeah, trade shows, events, I think they're one of the best ways to meet people. For like affiliate partners that I signed up this year, most of them I met at an event in the summer, and then I got to engage, and it was really nice because most of the like partners in the room I knew, and then the 4 or 5 that I'd never met before, it was then a perfect opportunity for me to be like, hi, do you want to work with us? So it's just like, yeah, I think you can't beat in-person interaction. Like, this is great. Talking over like Zoom or whatever platform, like it's always brilliant, but you just can't beat like face-to-face like chats. It's just great.
No, and I think the face-to-face chats, or face-to-face sales, as much as chats, is probably one of the best ways to learn, isn't it? In terms of that pitching side of your role.
Yeah, 100%. And I think from a sales perspective, there's like body language that you can't pick up on over like a video call. Like there's certain things that when you're in the room, you actually can have like more of an idea of what someone's thinking. They may not want to like give anything away, but you can just tell a bit more, as I think it's a lot easier to portray yourself differently over like a video call, for example. So I think it's good to be in person.
I think 100%. It's almost as if, as part of any sales role or any role that involves some sort of business development, you should have a part of the training where you're literally like out on the street talking to people, trying to flog something on the street. But so in terms of a lot of you started in sales, and a lot of people I think naturally come out of uni and they go into recruitment or sales. That seems to be two of the most prolific sort of career paths that people go into out of uni. Do you think that it's a good place to start out of uni to really, like you said, it's that baptism of fire?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I didn't leave uni wanting to go into sales. And to be honest, I fell into it. I think I got to the point where I was just like throwing my CV at so many recruiters because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't getting anywhere with finding what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do something, because to be in a role is so much better than sitting around doing something you know isn't going to get you anywhere. So, and I mean, I've proved that you can go into a role you didn't really know you wanted and actually enjoy it, and then other things come out. So I think it's a brilliant place to start. I think a lot of people do go into sales and recruitment because like you can have like a lot of people have those skills to be able to go into those two like fields. And I guess recruitment is sales, so like kind of same really. But yeah, I think they're two roles where like you can have so many transferable skills that help you get into those places. If you are sociable, if you're chatty, which I think everyone who knows me and probably who will listen to this will realize I am chatty and I can talk about anything forever. They're great roles to go into because they teach you so many important things. And again, like going back to like the resilience, like I think sometimes we can go through like uni, and I know having gone through uni, like we'll be like, oh my gosh, it was so difficult. Those exams were so hard. Like it was hard to do those essays. And yes, it was. And to be honest, there would have to be a very good role for me to ever do any form of degree, course, training. Obviously courses are different, but like any type of education again, I'd rather not have to sit another exam in my life. But when you then come out of uni, you realize how easy uni was, because at that time it was the hardest thing you've done, but then the next thing will be the hardest thing you've done. So yeah, I think it's a good way to to learn how to be resilient, it's a good, like baptism into the world of work. It can be quite cutthroat as well, which I think some people need. Sometimes you need a little wake up call to be like, the world isn't like nice and fluffy and rosy. It can be quite brutal, which isn't a bad thing to experience. Like, I think maybe not so much in sales, but like being in a travel company, a travel app company throughout the pandemic, that woke me up to how not nice the world can be. Like, and I think it's important. Like, otherwise you go through life thinking everything is going to be fine and everything's going to be okay. And obviously I did say that earlier, and everything will be fine and will be okay in the end. But it's just good to have like a reality check every now and then. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think the point you said about, I think everyone needs some harsh reality. I think that's one of the things that you see in sitting in between a sales and CS function, is that it really is a valuable thing to learn that resilience and some of the pain and obviously the wins. But I think it toughens people up, and it's always easier working with people who are tougher, let's say, than others, because they can take constructive criticism, they can take the lows, but they get stronger from it. So I think, I think that's sort of why I asked the question, because I think a lot of people go into sales and recruitment, and maybe there are some negative connotations about it, but I think it is a great role to get your teeth stuck into and learn from, basically.
I think you actually hit the nail on the head there. Oh, sorry.
No, you go on. I did the connections for people listening. The connection's not great, so there's like a 5-second delay between what we're saying, I think. But you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you hit the nail on the head there with what you were saying about people being able to take constructive criticism. I think doing a role that creates resilience isn't necessarily about like creating resilience for you in that role, in the people you speak to in that role, the customers you deal with, the prospects you deal with. It's so much more than that. And I think being able to see like your flaws, understand where you can improve, and also want to know what you could be doing better, it takes like a certain type of person to want to know that and to want to be able to do that. And I think as you're saying, it helps people more easily take constructive criticism. And I think also it helps people deliver constructive criticism, because if you have been on the receiving end of, say, if you've done a BDR role, you know how savage it can be and you know how horrible people can be. So it also makes you want to not treat other people like that. So if I now ever get a cold call, I will be so polite, like I will be so nice to them. But in the same way that I think it helps you helps you change the way you're thinking about things. So if you then needed to give somebody some advice, and I'm going to use the word advice instead of constructive criticism, just because it sounds more positive, but you then can deliver it in a way that doesn't make that person feel like they're doing something wrong, but makes them feel like they have positive changes to make. It sounded so fluffy, but I want to go with it.
No, I think let's swap it from constructive criticism to advice. Like more of a positive sentiment. But okay then. So there's talking of fluffy things. There's quite a fluffy question that Ellis, my colleague who sort of set up this episode of the podcast, but there's quite a fluffy question to end, which is advice to your younger self. So we've sort of covered the things that you've taken from each of the roles, but like if you were where you are right now, age 28, what advice would you give to your younger self coming out of uni? I'll just leave it sort of open-ended. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, like what I was saying earlier about, I think it's so much better to be in a role that has potential for you to progress than to stay doing what I was doing before. So when I came out of uni, I went into an admin role, which I knew was never going to be my life. And simply because I wanted to make some money, I didn't want to be sat at home doing nothing, just applying to jobs, because it would have driven me crazy. So I think just being in a role, even if you're not sure what you want to do, if an opportunity arises that you think is something you could enjoy, just go for it, because you don't know what a situation is going to be. Like, I didn't join my company my first real job thinking that I was going to have the opportunity to go into customer success, to go into marketing, to then meet somebody that would bring me to this wonderful role that I have now. So you never know what's going to happen in the future, just to be all like philosophical about it. And just trust your gut. I think your gut is often right. And if something doesn't feel right, it's not the role for you. If you don't vibe with the people you interview with, and I think an interview is as much you interviewing them as it is them interviewing you. And that's something I always try and remember. So when I had this like most recent interview, so I hadn't had an interview in like 4 years. And then I had this interview and I loved them. Like, both the interviews I had, I absolutely loved them. They were brilliant. Like, it was just a nice, fun chat. A couple of questions that threw me off guard, like asking me what my superpower was. But that in itself is just something that's like quite nice to think about. But yeah, I think don't worry about what the future holds. The world has a funny way of putting you where you need to be. Again, to sound fluffy and philosophical about it, but I think it really does. And it's better to be doing something that has the potential for you to move forwards than to not do anything because you're scared it's the wrong thing. There you go.
I think that's there's like 3 or 4 sort of nuggets or really good pieces of advice there. But that question about your superpower. So what answer did you give to that question?
So I said my ability to communicate with people, which I think it's a great superpower. I think, my ability to communicate and my ability to build relationships. I think I'm quite good at that. So yeah, that was my superpower, and it got me a job. So I'm going to say it was a good one.
Yeah, it clearly worked, but it reminds me of you said it was like a random question. I saw this random question that came up, and it was like in an interview, and it was how many windows are there in New York? And the question is designed to basically, there's 2 types of people. The type A that are going to go, well, how the hell am I going to know how many windows there are in New York? What a stupid question. And then the other set of people would be like, well, okay, there's roughly, I don't know, 11 million people in New York. So there's at least 1 window for each of the 11 million people in New York. And then you've got to think about this and the offices and the high rises and stuff. And it's about the two different attitudes of people and how they approach that question. So I think that I think those sorts of questions are very clever indeed. Well, there we go. I think 37. No, you go on. It's that dodgy connection again.
No, I was just going to say, what would your superpower be? Just to throw you on the spot. I'll interview you for a second.
I would probably say now in my current role, I wear so many different hats. I think my superpower would be, I would like, if we're giving it a superpower thing, like shape-shifting. So I will literally try anything. And if I don't know how to do it, I will watch a video and learn how to do it so I can do it. And that's a massive, massive thing that I've learned is a great sort of skill to have. So I think shape-shifting, but just wearing loads of different hats, I think. But
wonderful.
But no, there we go. It's 38 minutes. It's been a really, really great chat about sort of transferring between those roles, despite the dodgy connection. And the odd interruption between each of us, but no, it's my screen is saying that your camera did go off at one point on my screen, which shows how dodgy the connection is. But we got through it. I think there's some really, really good advice and stories and nuggets in there. So thank you very much for jumping on.
You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a nice start to my Wednesday morning.
You're probably a lot more awake than you were at 9 a.m. when you were trying to update your Chrome and jump on the podcast. Yeah,
definitely. I'll go have another coffee now.
Right. Again, thank you for coming on. We love joining podcasts as well. So if you're ever working on a podcast, or if the guy's got a podcast, please reach out and we'll have to get you back on at some point.
Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Amy.